Parks and Recreation. Introducing in just a second the folks from T&M, both Christine and Tom, who've done a ton of work on this project. They're going to give you a little bit of the history for it tonight, lay out some of the plans, answer any questions, and we'll go from there. This is still in the concept plan, and we haven't submitted anything yet, so nothing is 100% set in stone and final. The purpose of tonight was really just to get some more eyeballs on the plan. We're coming up with our next deadline for grant funding. And again, this project goes back to 2006, and their team's done tremendous work on it to this point. So Stanley will be joining us in a second. I think the mayor's here as well. So if anyone needs, has questions for us, we'll do our best to answer them for you. But with that, we'll give a nice warm welcome to Christine Ballard from T&M, who's been working on this, and also Tom Morrow as well. So. We have an IT issue, so hang tight. It was just on, right?
Yeah, it was just done.
Okay.
So
Since there's no signal.
Yes. When you open up the computer, it's not set up correctly. It re-looks for it. So you got to play with the source code.
What do you have to do?
Well, I haven't used yours. I've used others in town. Play with the source because when she opened up your computer, were you looking for it? Like it restarts.
Okay, try again. Try computer
So, are you hooked up in what source on the back of your?
HDMI
What?
2.
Of course, I didn't bring my glasses. Hey Charlie, which is she in?
I think I'm HDMI 2.
Okay. And then, for some reason, it's not picking it up. Nothing was loose. It's just when she opened the computer.
HDMI 2 on this?
Yeah, it was.
There you go.
Yeah, but how do I change it then? How do I advance?
Do you have a mouse?
Give it a try now. So you open it back up.
I'm gonna open this.
Do you have the option to send it to, like on the desktop? Sometimes if you right click, it'll say output to, and there's a source. And then right click when you're in the middle of your desktop. There's like an output maybe.
Output 2.
There you go.
That's what the park's going to look like.
But now I can't.
You can use it from there. Yeah. And then you can put it into the there you go.
Got it. Thank you.
Good teamwork.
I'm learning. I think I've hit every monitor in the
Pretty
tab.
good?
I'm good.
All right, thanks for bearing with us on that.
Okay.
That was Bill's fault, by the way. Bill in the back.
Okay. So, for starters, I know it says Sunset Park. We've kind of deferred to it as Sunset Park. Even that, as Charlie said, isn't set in stone. At this point, this is our first official reveal of the concept plan for Sunset. I figured I'd go through a little bit of the site history. The incinerator was constructed in about 1930. The landfill was closed in 1984. And right now, the actual Sunset Avenue site itself is comprised of the original landfill plus 5 additional lots, making it about 8.5 acres. So with the addition, and those additional parcels were purchased with Green Acres funding. So back in 2006, for some of you who haven't been part of this, I think Kathy's been here the whole time too, right? And Ed. Is Ed still here?
He was here.
Oh.
In the back.
Back in 2006, it was the mission of the council then at the time to convert this site to a park. We pursued funding through the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund. And the council at the time passed a resolution in order to get that funding, dedicating the parcel as future recreation. So at this point, the entire 8.5 acres is on the recreational open space inventory. So it would be very difficult to sell the property and develop it for homes or what have you. It's essentially protected and funded. So going back to the 2006, once we did that, going into the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund, which is a fund that helps convert brownfield sites to parks, we had to reestablish a new baseline of what is the contamination. Although the landfill had been closed in '84, it was closed at the standards that were in '84. So we went back and we've done extensive testing throughout the site, testing of gas, of sediment, of the cap itself. And basically we found out, and we weren't surprised, that the landfill doesn't meet today's standards for landfill closure. We weren't surprised by finding that. But at least we have now the baseline established. So the next step, which is where we are now, is to come up with a remediation plan. And part and parcel with that for the hazardous discharge, I'm going to refer to as HDSRF. It's a lot easier for me. It's a lot of words. Is that you have to have a concept plan because your remediation has to match your concept plan. So that's where we are today. We're coming up with a concept plan so that we can go to the next step and remediate this site. But should the borough decide not to go to the next step, it would remain as it is. It would remain, continue to impact the environment, continue to be anyone who comes in contact with it to come in contact with the contaminants that exist there. So what we're proposing for the majority of the site is a landfill cap. The cap itself is going to actually go over the existing landfill cap, which was done back in when it was closed in '84. So it's a cap on a cap. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a geotextile material, and it does come in different colors. We're proposing safety orange, so that we can kind of cover the entire site, literally the entire site, and now establish our new base layer. So although on landfills you're not supposed to ever be digging without getting a permit and going through the proper approvals, if it were to happen, we figured this is another level of safety. That if someone's digging, they look down, they see the safety orange layer, they immediately think, this is something I wasn't expecting, I wonder what's going on here. So we figured we think that's important for the overall safety and just general awareness. The next step is a clean fill cap of at least 24 inches. And I say at least 24 inches. HDSRF will cover 24 inches. But above and beyond that is our finished grade. So even though we may be placing clean fill on top of what's there existing, we have different features that you'll see in a little bit that may require more than 24 inches to make it work. So one of the big things with discussion, we've back in November, I guess it still is November, in November, earlier this month, we met with the DEP to talk about our concept plan and our proposed capping. Because for those of you who may or may not know, as was shown on the first slide, there are some trees there. So in order to do a proper cap, we came right out front and said to the DEP, we want to cap the entire site. We don't want to leave any areas of exposure available. So that means we're going to have to clear portions of this site. And that was really a big hurdle for us to overcome with the DEP, because typically they don't like clear cutting a site, but they too recognize the importance of establishing a complete baseline, getting everything capped properly and moving forward. So capping, although it's the most common form of remediation because it's the most cost effective. I mean, if you think about the opposite of capping is to dig and haul away. To dig and haul away 8.5 acres of garbage would absolutely bankrupt Red Bank. It would not be possible. So capping is going to be the majority. There's a small area where we're thinking maybe we have to dig out and haul away, but a very limited area. And then right now we're working with the DEP on what kind of treatment we're going to have along the waterfront. Because our goal here for the waterfront area is to hold in the landfill. Let's not let the material through erosion continue to become stick out of the sides of the bank. So we want to hold it in, but still allow people to get down as close to the water as possible. So it's a balancing act where we've not fully defined what we're going to do there. We're in active discussions with the DEP. In fact, we have another meeting with them in a couple weeks to kind of work that out. So all of these things, the reason why it's so important for us to keep in touch with the DEP is they're funding this. They're funding the remediation. So far to date, the investigation has been 100% funded through the HDSRF program. The next phase will be covered 75% for the remediation. So that sounds great. Sounds like sign us up. The only trouble is right now the state only has $5 million statewide for all projects that are residential remediation projects. So you can imagine if there's a project max per year of $1 million, that's 5 projects. So we're going to be getting in line with other people, waiting our turn. But in the end, we're expecting to get funding for the remediation of this project.
Christine, that's been all along too.
Pardon?
They would have so much funding available and we would be in line.
Right.
Because we were already funded partially, they tended to be more sympathetic to funding projects that are ongoing than new projects.
Right. In fact, I intentionally work closely with the DEP as the project moves along, because if they're on board with what we're doing, we basically talk to them that we can actually pre-fund the project. If Red Bank would want to do that, could pre-fund the project. They'd have already reviewed all of our documentation, and then it would be reimbursable. I did the same thing for Count Basie Park. We knew we wanted to do the extra turf fields. We applied. I got retroactive funding a couple of years later. So as long as you keep the right people in the loop as you're moving forward, you have a little bit of leeway there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
How's it going, everybody? My name's Tom Loro. I'm a landscape architect for T&M Associates. I've met some of you guys at the last meeting that we were all together at. If you were there, then you'll recognize this. It was part of our last presentation. Basically, what we wanted to do was just kind of reintroduce everybody to the site, show you kind of like a zoomed out view of the overall footprint, as well as just some of the site analysis that we've done leading up to the concept design. Just to give you kind of an idea of where our heads were at when we put everything together. So if you were at the last meeting, then you know that we talked about things like wind coming into the site, different views that we thought would be important to capitalize on, entrances, and then things like sunrise and sunset, playing around with light and shadow, different things like that. And as you'll recognize, you'll have the recycling center right over there where that little recycling symbol is. As of right now, that's going to be a continuation of the park. It's not going anywhere. And you'll see that in the concept as we move through the presentation. Yeah. So kind of where we started with the site analysis and everything, we had this meeting during, what was it, July? Was it May? Wow, it was how long ago? So we had this meeting. Like I said, I recognize a lot of you from my previous presentation. And we talked about things like, what does this community want? Do they want a park? Do they not want a park? What do you guys want to see if there is a park? Do you just want a grass field? Do we want soccer fields, football, an ice skating rink? At that point, the sky was the limit, so we really didn't know. So we put together all these boards, and you guys did a great job putting all these sticky notes up. And we took all those comments and we kind of compiled them into a big list. And then we went ahead and we kind of generated what we thought was a good representation of what the park could be. And as you see when we show the concept, it's not definitive, it's not set in stone, it's just what we thought would be a good combination of all the things that seem to be really popular with the community and the Environmental Commission and all of the council members. So if you want to move on to the next slide. So we took some of our own experience with some brownfield and contaminated sites, as you see here. This is a park that I recently worked on in Neptune Veterans Park. It was the site of an old Welsh Farms warehouse, and we had a great deal of contaminated soil. It's a thriving park right now. The township loves it. They have their Veterans Memorial Service there every year. That's been going for about 3 years now. Overpeck Park in Leonia, that's got 6 or 7 different sports fields, a huge playground. They built this awesome wooden truss bridge here. Again, Bergen County loves it. Can't say enough great things about it. And then another Veterans Park we did in North Brunswick that just finished up last year was another brownfield site. We had to dig out a little bit of contaminated soil on there as well. That's 3 different playing fields, basketball courts, playgrounds. So just to get you guys familiar with that, we're very experienced with this kind of work. And I know it can be hard to wrap your head around the fact that we're going to take this contaminated site and turn it into something that we can utilize every day. But we've done it effectively in the past, and we've been very successful with it as well. And this is just some of the projects. I think I introduced a couple of these in my last presentation as well. But for those of you that weren't there, just some precedent studies that I either visited or ones that we've talked about where we want to kind of borrow the same ideas and kind of mesh them into this park. Because these are very successful parks, some of them built within the last 2 to 5 years on sites that are highly more contaminated than where we are currently. If you notice, Fresh Hills Park in Staten Island, I mean, it was one of the biggest garbage dumps on the East Coast, if not the United States. They're currently working on seeping some of the methane out of that, but parts of that park are currently open to the public. They're working on getting the whole thing open within the next few years. But it kind of follows the same vein where it's a big open space that they're turning into more passive recreation with some pockets of active recreation. Newark Riverfront Park was a huge brownfield site. They managed to be able to get the citizens of Newark access to the waterfront, which they hadn't had in almost 50 years. That just won an American Society of Landscape Architecture Award, national. Gowanus Canal Sponge Park is another one. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Gowanus Canal, but it's one of the most contaminated waterways in the country. They're working right now to build access down to the park while also rehabilitating the water at the same time. And then an older park that's more tried and true, Gasworks in Seattle, just won a Lifetime Achievement Award. It's been around for almost 40 years now, and it's become a staple of the community. They've never had any problems with any kind of contamination with people utilizing the park. I mean, they have music festivals, arts festivals. It's a real kind of crown jewel, I guess, for this type of project. And all of that kind of culminated together from our own meetings and from studying these types of places, and we came to the concept that we're showing on the next slide. So if you guys have been on Red Bank Green in the last 24 hours, you've probably already seen this. If not, this is the initial concept for Sunset Park. Like I said, nothing is set in stone yet, but this is just kind of how we visualized a good layout would form together and kind of give us the amenities that we thought everybody would want. Whether or not they all stay here is really up to everyone in this room and the citizens and the Environmental Commission and everyone else we talk to on a regular basis. But as we move across here, you can see we're kind of working into the existing grade, and the concept kind of focuses on sort of stepping approach down to the water, kind of as you work down this way. So the boardwalk area you see would be the lowest elevation closest to the water, and you would work your way back up towards the street. We've got some good grades to work with out there, so we were thinking sledding hills would be really nice for the winter time. That also doubles as passive recreation as a great lawn space in the spring, the summer, and the fall. You can see a footprint for a soccer field right now. That's not a regulation size for 11v11, but we figured we wanted to incorporate some type of field there in case it needed to be striped to be played on. And it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where you can have that soccer field if necessary, but it also acts as a space for movies in the park, or just hanging out, kicking a ball around, or throwing a frisbee. To the, I guess, the north or the east of that, the west. You've got some more forested area. What we plan on doing is all of the vegetation that we take out, we want to put it back in as densely as we can. Because just as much as we want to make this a park for everyone to use, we want to make sure we're kind of regenerating some of that estuary ecosystem that would have been there if it hadn't been a contaminated site. So we want to bring back some wildlife, and we want to kind of give people an opportunity to really get close to nature. So you get a little bit of open space, a little bit of forested trails where you can run and jog and do a little bit of hiking, maybe do some bird watching. As you move down through, you kind of come to the boardwalk area. That would span the whole waterfront of the park with a pavilion kind of close to the great lawn and soccer field area. We thought that would be a nice place to kind of have a shaded spot where you could bring some food or have an event, and also give you some views to the lawn as well as to the water. As you come down, you'll see this really colorful area here, the orange and the blue. That would be the children's playground area, and we don't have anything set in stone yet, but we're just thinking, try to make it more of inclusive play and just more adventurous, give kids an opportunity to really explore. Like I said, we haven't picked out any equipment yet, but we're trying to kind of think outside the box. Then as you come up, you'll see there's a main plaza that kind of comes in right here. The way we generated the location for that was we actually mapped out the path of the sunsets throughout the year, and this kind of perched up gives you the best opportunity to see all the sunsets across the water over the trees at different points. Next to that, you'll have your building. We're not sure what that's going to be yet. Maybe a community center, possibly an environmental center, some kind of education area. We really want to kind of include these different types of green infrastructure in our architecture and our park as well. Rain gardens and maybe reutilizing gray water, because none of this is going to see through the cap. It's all going to come down and infiltrate into that 24 inches of clean fill. Whether we catch that in some pipes and some cisterns, that would allow us to kind of, I guess, showcase the fact that we're trying to make this more of a sustainable site. Kind of utilize those LEED standards, whether or not we go for LEED or anything like that, would be further down the line. But as we move across from the building, we were thinking possibly some community garden space, raised beds, where you would be allowed to either rent a spot or volunteer your time and then be able to control a plot where you could grow vegetables or fruits or whatever your heart desires. And then as we move across from there, We've got a proposed kayak launch that would allow people access to the water. As you can see, there's a small parking lot where you'd be able to park and then launch a boat off. And then kind of sandwiching on the other side would be another dense area of trees and wildlife. And with the vegetation, like I said, we're really going to focus on native plantings, things that require low maintenance, and really kind of showcase the area and kind of bring people back to being educated to what's around. Oh, yeah, sorry. So again, we have the recycling center here. That's going to be staying, and we figured instead of really trying to, put up a big like concrete block wall or something like that, we kind of give it a softer edge, and we do like a living wall where we could do some type of plantings on it, or maybe some artist installation. We'll see what happens. And parking lot as well, so that way people can actually drive to the site if they have to. And everything would be connected through sidewalks as well, so it would be just as walkable as it is drivable. And we'd make sure there'd be plenty of access for cyclists and sorts of forms of transportation.
So the next steps for this project is basically for the borough to confirm the concept plan. We can't go to the next step until everyone is in somewhat of agreement that this concept meets the needs of the community and that they want to move forward. Once the concept plan is finalized, we can begin putting together a remediation plan to match the concept plan. And at the same time, we'll be making an application to HDSRF. So the application review period takes about, right now, they're looking at 6 months. But once we have the concept plan finalized, we'll have some cost estimates put together, and we'll be able to start making simultaneously applications for development of the site. So that would be for various agencies like DEP, Green Acres, or Monmouth County Open Space, or there's a number of ways we can apply for funding for the development of the park, which will be separate from the remediation of the site. So I think I just wanted to kind of make a comment here. I know there was some questions about connectivity, like people getting to this site and how it connects in with the road network, the bike ped network. I mean, I know we're showing parking spaces. It only makes sense to have a couple of parking spaces, but there's more going on in this community that links to Sunset. I don't know how many of you are familiar, but several years ago there was an application that came before the zoning board, which it was titled at the time RW at River's Edge. It's located between Bank and Doctors Parker. Well, they had to come back to the zoning board for an amendment, and knowing that we had this project coming down the line, I negotiated with the developer at the time to give us a waterfront walkway. So we actually have a waterfront walkway that goes from Sunset almost all the way to the primary school. There's one single lot in the middle that would make that connection. On the other side of the primary school, I don't know how many of you know, but we're putting in an emergency access driveway for the primary school, which now gives another pedestrian access, bike ped access, on the other side of the primary school. So soon we're actually going to have waterfront linkage. I mean, obviously we're missing that one piece in the middle, but we'll have almost a complete linkage from Locust all the way down to Sunset Park. And given the size of Sunset Park, we also have planned some walk-in entrances. Right now, Tom didn't touch on it, but we have a walk-in entrance shown at west side, and then hopefully down the line we'll be able to have a walk-in entrance from Chapin. So we're going to have linkages from all parts of the west side of of Red Bank to really make this a viable park so that the community doesn't need to drive there. They can walk, they can bike, and you know, it will really be a nice anchor for Red Bank. So with that, I'm going to flip back to the concept sketch because I'm sure that's where you'll have most of your questions. But feel free to. That's all we have.
About the west side, I live at the end of West Side, and there's barely any room there as it is. That's a dead end. It's not a cul-de-sac, and that's my front yard where it looks like you're planning to put it. Two things. I don't really want people walking through my front yard to get there, and the other thing is, as far as parking, I have enough trouble getting out of my driveway as it is because I can't back.
I don't
towards the other
envision
way.
people parking on West Side.
Really? There's going to be an entrance there? And you don't
It's
think
going to
people
be
are
a
gonna
small.
park there?
It's going to be a small set of stairs. I mean, there's a primary entrance is going to be off Sunset and
I mean,
looping through.
we already used to have a problem. We always have to watch out because there are people who come in there to do drugs. And, we're always looking out there to keep that street clean from drugs. There used to be a prostitute who used to go down that street. And, I don't know that this is going to make it any better, giving them access to go there at, a nice place to shoot up. And this is really concerning. And why do we have to develop every single piece of land? Why can't nature be it's right on the, I don't understand why we have to develop every square inch of land. Why can't we just leave, it's a marsh. It's really, and how much, who's paying for this and how much is it gonna cost? We are,
This is opposite of development. I mean, we could have just as easily.
Development, come on, that's your idea.
Please.
It's a marsh.
Excuse me, let me comment.
Have you walked down there?
Yes, I have.
Do you know how marshy
I've
that
been
is?
walking for 10 years.
Down there?
And yes,
It's,
this is a landfill. It's
it's,
a dirty landfill in a neighborhood. So what we're proposing is a feature for the neighbors, for the neighborhood. To take this dirty landfill that used to have a 100-foot smokestack and a dilapidated building and expose contamination and make it useful for the neighborhood. There's no sign saying, hey, let's go to the park. There's no unique water features here. There's no, this is not supposed to be a destination for people from Staten Island to come visit. This is a neighborhood park. So we're talking about a walkway for your convenience, your neighborhood, so you don't have to drive around the block to get there.
I don't mind walking around the block to get to the entrance that is a really steep drop down there, except from my property. And so I'm concerned that there's going to be like a walkway in my front yard. It's very close. My house is very close to the line there. And I don't want to seem like a jerk or anything, but at all hours of the night, people walking down there to go shoot up doesn't sound really appealing to me. Because we've really worked at keeping it to make it an unappealing place for people to shoot up and to drink. But I think putting steps down there, it's like.
I lived at 48 Bank Street, 1982. 48 Bank Street, and they had a pocket park, a vacant lot.
I have people backing me up here. Can we talk about now? Can we talk about now?
Excuse me.
I know how bad it was in the 80s.
I listened to you.
Talk about now.
I listened to you. I lived in the West Side. I lived in Bank Street.
Then you've been all over.
And it was
You always have to hear your childhood activities.
excuse me, I was a resident of the West Side, 48 Bank, and it was a pocket park, and it was filled with needles and condoms and everything else at the time. So now that neighborhood is pretty well developed. It's nice new homes being built there. People are taking care of that neighborhood.
There are good,
So-
yes, there are
so
good people in the neighborhood.
Right now, this is
absolutely.
being used like that because it's not developed. It's an old landfill. If you make it something that people take pride in, then it's gonna police itself. The neighborhood will police it.
You're already
The police
doing,
will follow.
we're planting stuff, you're probably gonna dig up what we planted to make a nice community garden there. The children painted signs. I don't know if any of you have been down, the kids painted signs, we're planting what we can. On our own, we're doing this, township's not helping us, but we're doing this stuff. And then you're probably gonna rip it up to put a path down there.
Is it on your property? I mean, we, so far, we've gotten, what, $750,000 from DEP. The demolition didn't cost us a thing. The work that we've done to assess the test didn't cost us anything. This has not cost the taxpayers
Yes,
anything.
yes,
We have
yes,
funding,
right,
and we have more to apply for. And they said to apply for 75%, but we have other people that want to partner with us to cover that other 25%.
Why do they
So
want to
why
partner
would
with you?
why would we not?
Why do they want out of
Why would
it?
the Red Bank
Why do they want out of it
residents,
to partner with you?
Monmouth Conservatory and Monmouth Conservation Foundation, they fund these projects. So why would we want to not follow through with the $750,000 that we've already gotten to do this project? I mean, this whole concept has started 10 years earlier. And not take advantage of the funding that's available to finish the project with people that want to come in and cover the other 25%.
So you're gonna take all of that green and cover it with the orange? Is that the plan?
That orange is going to be 24, 36 inches straight.
Okay.
You want,
But you're gonna have to pull out all the trees that you see up there, the wooded trails.
These are all new trees.
It's all
This
new-
is what
new
we're
proposed
planting.
Stuff.
That's what you're planting. So you're gonna clear cut the whole, all the
Right.
acres.
This is what we're clearing, yes.
So all of it.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna replant trees.
Yes.
What about bulkheading?
We've had initial discussions with the DEP and we don't think we need it.
That's good to know.
No. We're talking about, that was something that I was concerned with, about, how are we gonna hold in the landfill? Because there's large chunks of like concrete along the waterway and et cetera, and I feel it's really important for people to get as close to the water as possible, and with, the tidal swings, it'll just wash it away. So, we're talking about maybe some gabion baskets and, gabion baskets.
It's a gabion basket.
It's a big basket of rocks.
It's what?
It's a shoreline treatment that's typical. It's
It means those big rocks.
it's in a right.
Like,
So it'll catch all the garbage too, right? That people throw away because people are dirty and litter.
Well, you could put up a bulkhead and then it'll bounce the trash down the line. I mean, that's
Yeah,
the trade-off
because
here. I mean,
You're encouraging people to go along the waterway
Right.
and throw
right.
their garbage there.
There's not that much access to the waterway in Red Bank. Let's just be honest. There's just not. So you have 850 feet here that we can give back to the community, which I think would be a huge plus for Red Bank. Some of you may disagree. That's okay. You don't have to agree with me. But it's an absolute stunning view from there. It's absolute stunning. So to be able to open that back up and give that back to the community, I think is something that it's going to be a gem. I don't even think you guys realize what you could have there and
What
have
about
access
Marine
to.
Park? Marine Park's our gem.
It is a
looks
gem,
like crap.
and it's a regional, and it's going to serve a different purpose. Marine Park. You have the big festivals at Marine Park. It's a
It
regional.
looks like crap. It's an embarrassment for Red Bank.
Well, I
Why
think
are
that's
we-
a little
we're
bit
not
off
talking
topic.
Because
But
this has funding to do this. Marine Park doesn't. Marine Park was a ship dock.
Not a shit dock.
It was a steamboat
Well,
dock.
I know what it was,
Right.
Stanley, but
And
that's
so there is no federal, there's no available money to do Marine Park like there is money available to do this.
I have yes.
So, I have a whole slew of suggestions and recommendations. approach you later with like small little details about the plan, or?
That's up to you. If you know, we can talk about suggestions. Anyone is more than welcome to issue comments, whether they want to issue it in writing, whether you want to come up and talk to me after the fact, that's more than welcome. If you want to be heard by everybody, that's fine
I'll give you
too.
my big picture take on it.
Do you mind saying your name real quick, just for the
Yeah,
record?
Brian Donnie, 118 Bank Street.
Thank you.
When my wife and I bought our house in 2003, there was a headline in the Hub newspaper saying West Side Park plans coming. That was 14 years ago, so I can't tell you how excited I am to see these plans finally come out. As someone who takes a machete and cuts a path at the end of Bergen, James Parker, to get to the bottom, and goes on kayaking sites and tells people to please park in front of my house so you can launch your kayak. And I take people down there and show them. I don't have any problem with people coming in the neighborhood if they're going to be coming and using a park. And I think this whole thing could be completely transformative for the west side. And if someone just asked, why do we need this? I encourage them to come to Bank Street on any given day when there's 10 to 15 parklets across the street and tell me kids playing in the street every day playing in the street. And I encourage them to try to take a baby in a stroller across the railroad tracks to Count Basie Field, which I did when my kids were small, and that's not fun crossing Shrewsbury Ave. So the west side needs this so bad. It's so good to see it. And I spent a lot of time paddling out there, and I watched the sunset go down last night, and it's amazing. And like you said, people have no idea how awesome it is. So now my suggestions would be, I hope the parking area, I know there's going to be a debate over how big it could be, if that could be gravel, because I've spent a lot of time at the rally for the Navasink meetings where they're really trying to reduce the runoff into the river. So that could be that would be a big
We're
difference
talking
with
about,
gravel.
you know, maybe porous
Porous
pavement
pavement
there.
and
Gravel,
Right.
gravel.
And we want to, like I said, we want to maximize the ability to utilize rain gardens to kind of infiltrate as much as we can and clean it before it discharges back into the sewer. You know what I mean?
The other thing is that that soccer field is going to be covered in geese quick. So, I mean, I don't know what kind of geese control measures. I've seen a program in Ocean County where people allow, you get a special dog tag if you register and sign up for the geese police program. And then in the morning from like 6 to 9, when really nobody's playing there, you can let your dog go on there and the dog can keep the geese away. And that really self-polices itself really well, because if anybody doesn't pick up after their dog, other dog owners know it's going to be doing it for everybody. And my third suggestion is that this town needs a skate park really bad.
Yeah,
You know,
so,
I've seen them all over. I travel all over the state for my job, and I see beautiful skate parks going up.
yeah,
everywhere.
that was actually a big comment at one of the earlier meetings. One of the things that we have talked about is instead of having your typical bench that has the wooden slats, using something that's maybe formed concrete, so it's skatable. So all the furniture and all of the furnishings in the park are skatable, so it's more durable. So it's instead of having maybe a designated area, it can unofficially all be a skate park. Yes.
The question I want to ask you said you did a.
Could we have your name first?
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Dart. I wrote it down.
Okay.
I doubt it. But the question I want to ask you said you did a park in Newark. Where about in Newark you did a park?
Oh, that wasn't our park. That was, we were talking about precedent studies that we were looking at.
Right.
That was on the waterfront area. So what they did was they took about 700 or 800 feet along the water, and they bulkheaded it, and then they basically put in this boardwalk.
Okay. The other question is there any other land that's available where they can put a park? That's the major question I want to ask you. Besides down there in the dump area. Is there any other question? Anyone, y'all two can answer. Is there any other land that's available right today that's not contamination, that you don't have no problem with, but you just go on there, beautify it, you don't have to worry about what's going to come out, because y'all cannot guarantee nobody what's going to happen.
But we can. because,
How can, wait a minute, but you're not my thing is not to overtalk you. But
No,
you're-
please.
But you're not a chemist, you're not a biologist.
well, I'm not.
And you, well, matter of fact, what I'm just looking at, it's just really sad sometimes when people get up here and come to meetings, and I'm quite sure it's gotta be a piece of land, there's nothing wrong with it. And I would say, why do you wanna keep putting people down here at the end of this? And you know the history of it. You get the history with some people going way back before my time. You go 80 years back, and you say, this is what's down here. And I keep saying, why do you gotta come down to Foot of Sunset all the time? Why can't you go somewhere else and put a park? And you talking about, they see kids playing in the street. Kids are gonna play in the street, everybody was a kid, and you're gonna go wherever you wanna go, and it quite naturally, you're gonna cross town, uptown, you're gonna go, sometimes you're gonna take a half an hour walk somewhere else, right? So I just kept saying, why do you wanna come down to the Foot of Sunset?
Because that's the
Not-
one we own. We don't have anything that size
But you know,
to build that anywhere else.
but in, just like, I'm gonna go back to this lady right here, what she was just talking about. And I respect her, because she said, it's gonna be a lot of problems. And it is problems down there. You don't know what's in the ground, what's gonna come out of the ground. And people don't respect people. And they say, you're gonna be all right, you're gonna be all right. But once they start, my feeling is they're gonna get down there and houses gonna start shaking. You might start shaking, tearing up, knocking, people's foundations might start cracking. And I said, that's a whole lot of things, but you should respect everybody's thought, even what this lady said and what Sydney said. Let people talk, and she lives right here. And it's sad, even before I came here, and I said, you hear about stories like this, what's down there, I still hear stories. And I keep saying, why is it some other place that they can find that's more suitable and there's nothing wrong with it? Just like you take a piece of cake, you can't take a piece of cake on the top is good, the bottom you're gonna cut it off, and you're gonna put another piece of good piece on the bottom.
Unfortunately, in New Jersey, there's not a lot of that.
Right.
It's just where we live. New Jersey is so densely populated,
Well-
and all we have left are landfills. I mean, that's why all of the sites nowadays that are getting such acclaim are landfills, because it's recaptured land.
But my thing is-
There's not large open space tracts.
but one-
And what we have here right now, if we were to leave it today, you could have kids going out there, running around, and they're in direct contact with it. What we're proposing to do will actually make the situation better.
What you mean by what you mean by make it better?
Eliminate direct contact and direct exposure.
But but you can't, like the major question, nobody can guarantee how it's
No one can guarantee anything, but I can tell you, you eat a burnt hot dog, there's carcinogens in a burnt hot dog.
Right, but my thing is, if you can't guarantee something, why mess with something?
Because right now it's
dangerous now.
It's more dangerous now.
Yeah, but why?
We have studies that show this landfill is contaminating nature. As it is, as it stands right now, we have studies that show.
I'm just going to ask you two more questions, then I'm going to sit
Publish
down.
those studies. You said the runoff with seepage wasn't going to be a problem.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, and if you could get your name for the record.
My name's Alan Hill, 64 McLaren. I'm an owner, a resident for a year, taxed without representation, you can tell from my accent. But I'm just saying, what you've already said the runoff or the seepage from that site is safe.
I did not say that.
Oh, what did you say? You said it wasn't anything to worry about. This plan has got that horizontal membrane, whatever you want to call it. But what is stopping stuff going out sideways? This was a site, an incinerator site.
It was.
Can I say that many years ago I lived near an old tar works, not in this continent, but I was fortunate in the sense I lived in a huge city with huge resources and also European resources as well. To actually isolate and coffer down that tar works cost in the region of $40 million, and it's smaller than Sunset Park. And it worries me what is still going to be seeping out there. I think the park is a great idea. It's lovely. It's lovely. I've not got anything against it in that sense. But what is going to be done is to really genuinely reclaim that area. I've got other issues with it. There are infrastructure problems. somehow in your mind you conjured up 36 parking spaces. I'd like to know on what study you suddenly decided 36 was great for you. I'd like to know how many bike parking spaces, how it actually fitted into the 2010 pedestrian and cycling plan for this town, which I have yet to see any really significant progress on.
On which plan? The bike ped
The
plan?
bike ped plan, there's no
Yeah.
reference to it in this. There is not.
There's not, but
There's not, you know, you consider a major part
it is.
of infrastructure of a town that pays no attention to any other part or planning.
Well,
And
okay.
like I say, I think it's a great idea. I would really like to see it, but I think you are totally underestimating what actually needs to be done there.
With
And
regard to parking?
if it's just parking, it's easy, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're.
Just make 72 places. I don't know.
Well,
That's
I
not
just
the
want to
point.
get to the
point
root
is
of your
this access for the whole of the town without getting mowed down, without parking up in front of other residents' houses and so on. So
She described how there's a contiguous walkway along almost the
a
entire
contiguous
west side,
walkway,
which I walk on, it's there right now.
oh, so do I. So do
So
I.
the entire west side can walk to this park.
Well, I live on the east side. I live on the east side.
And you have East Side Park.
So then why do you need the West Side Avenue, West Side
So
Avenue
you can walk to a park
entrance?
too.
If you've got all
I
these
can't
other
walk to a
things,
park.
I
why
can't.
West
I could be-
Side Avenue?
But here's the
Why?
thing. We're
Why
talking
you
about
wait?
Let's go one at a time,
Speak,
folks.
please.
We're
One
talking
person at
about
a
the whole
time.
town. We're talking about a whole town view.
Okay.
East side, west side. I live on the east side, I'm entitled to this part. You're on the west side, you can have this part. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a way of moving around the community,
Sure. So,
which is being ignored in this.
well, I'm very
Looking at-
familiar with the bike ped plan, quite honestly, because I worked on that project. And I've worked with Red Bank in installing many pieces of that plan throughout the borough. We started with Chestnut Street. Chestnut Street was the first road that had sharrows. We have designated bike lanes on Bridge, but there's opportunity here. I mean, you don't.
Madam, tomorrow I'll lend you a bike, come and ride with me along the Sharrows.
The point
Good luck.
is, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, when we were able to find money, it actually started with NPP money, and then we got NPP money to get rid of the incinerator first step. The money that is available is for this parcel. It doesn't extend to bike paths and all this. This becomes a destination where we can improve access as part of a bigger plan. But the money that we're talking about now that's available is for reclamation of this site. It's money that's following money that they've already, the state has already lent us $750,000 to do, get us to this point. We've done extensive testing. We know what's there. We know what travel paths it can follow. We're looking at alternatives on how to contain it, package it so it won't harm anybody. But right now, it's not contained. Right now, all you have is some plant life and grass on top. So we're looking to make it safe. Take advantage of the funding that's available to move this project along while the people who are working with us to give us the money are still in the DEP to help us. We got to get it now while it's available.
Stanley, can I just say something? I hear everybody talk. My name is Freddie Boyne. I hear everybody talk about this park. I hear the young lady. I used to live at 128 West Side Avenue. I know what you're talking about down there. Everybody talking about this park. You talk about walk paths. I used to play down there. 9 people worked for the borough. It's no longer here. That worked at that incinerator down there when it was a dump. My father worked in there cleaning it out. Okay, when I was a kid, you just go down that dump. I know what's down in that ground. You got a problem right here on Dr. Parker Boulevard, a small area, Mama Daycare Center, contaminated. It's been an ongoing site for 10 years. For 10 years. And every time they dig and cap it. Right now, the little kids, smaller than that little girl right there that goes there, and little babies. They can't even come out there and sit because it's contaminated. Right now, go by there, you'll see it. It's blocked off. They've been doing it 10 years. They keep coming to surface. You have Walmart, way out there in Eatontown. I mean, Tip Falls. You know that was contaminated? When they dug, and cap, the whole building, they had to close it down. It gave away, okay? Now you talk about the landfill down here, okay? I live down there, by the landfill. And what this young lady saying, I go fishing down there at the end of West Bergen. You got signs up, contaminated. No fishing, no crabbing. Right now, you got signs up, okay? When we go down that hill, we catch the fish, we throw them back. I run young kids out from down there. Right now, I take you down there right now. You see where they stand over there and smoke pot and do whatever they want to do. This park is only going to be a park for people down here to hang out late at night and whatnot. Down here, I'm telling you, your kid may play there during the day, but at night, you're going to have problems. I was over in Middletown just last week, right over the bridge here. Right over the bridge, done a job for a lady. You know what she told me? There's so many houses over there been burglarized already. Right over the bridge there. What you going to have down here? Now you talk about a site, Long Branch. Long Branch. I came to Pilgrim. I spoke to y'all. Right here. Here's the paper right here. Long Branch, DEP. DEP right here. Let me give you a copy of it. Long Branch. They dug and dug and dug. All these people got sick and they suing. They suing right now because of the time of this site. Sam Mills, one of them, football player. Okay, he died. His funeral was up here on Tower Hill. He died. All the peoples in there are sick, and some of them are no longer here. They got a big lawsuit against them for digging that stuff up. Our hall's still there in Long Branch. Our hall's still in Jersey City for these sites. But you're talking about what you're going to do, you're not going to cap it and whatnot, this and that. We got a problem. You can build a building on it, but for kids to play on it, it's not safe. You got a football player used to play here. Two of them. When that young man spoke about geese feasting, okay, he played for the Giants, and he was practicing, and he slid, elbow, went in the geese feasting. He almost lost so much, but you know who he was? Wayne Victor, Margaret's grandson, right here on Front Street. His son can't play football no more. So that stuff is down there. I got a picture on my camera right now. Newman's Ferry Road. A deer ran out the hill, up the hill, ran in a lady's car the other day on Newman's Ferry Road. I pulled the deer out the road. Her car was messed up. That's all down there. Y'all see money signs, okay? Y'all, that's all y'all see, fixing this up with. I'm not saying Red Bank don't need a park, okay? That's not the place for a park. I know what's down there. Money is more than a person's life. You had 9 people that's no longer here working for the borough. That's deceased. I worked for the borough 29 and a half years. I know what's down there hill. You can sit here and say it's not. I traveled that water all the way down. All the way down. You got a stream coming off of Newman's Ferry Road, down in there, along that lady's house, coming right in the back of her. I don't know where you live, on what side, the west side, but it's coming down the back. You got a stream here. When you say cap, that's going to push that stuff out. And when it pushes it out, where's it going to go? In the river. We're going to be right back here. Y'all may not be here because you got paid. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, but by the way, just a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, got it right here. The first meeting I had, after y'all had it at Pilgrim Baptist Church, I had a meeting up here at the lodge for the same thing here. 63 people showed up that was against it. We just had another meeting last month, the 27th. You know how many showed up? 34. You know what happened? It was a football game. I invited all the councilmen. Stanley was at the football game. I got a phone call. He's supposed to have been there. You know what one man said? I'm going to let somebody else tell you so you know I'm not lying. What did the man say, Jimmy? When the councilman didn't show, what did he say? No. When he said, what did he say? He said, it's a shame that these councilmen in this town not even up here for this problem over here on West Side Park. Was I lying? Thank you.
All right, there's still some more in.
Yeah. My name is Mark Gregory. I live at 109 Bank Street. First, I'd like to say the park looks amazing. We put a great job done planning it. We're very excited. I'm a local real estate agent as well. I can tell you there's a tremendous amount of positive excitement for this park. Brian Donahue, one of my neighbors, was talking about how many kids are out on the street. It's true. There is no open space over there for children to play. They are out in the street. They're on Tilton. They're on Bank. They're on Dr. James Parker. They're dodging cars. People are driving now with cell phones. It's not like it used to be when we were kids. It's a lot more dangerous to be out in the street. Another thing I'd like to talk about, a lot of people have made remarks, that they spent time as a kid in these woods, in this area. Kids are always going to be kids. I go in that area quite a bit. I walk my dog. I always see kids back there playing. And what kid wouldn't want to play in the woods? So right now, we have our kids right up there being contaminated. I didn't realize how contaminated it was, but children are playing in the contaminated site. There's no protection. This is an important thing. This is our children. This is our neighborhood. This is our community. This is not a bad thing, putting a park in and also protecting the land, the river. Right now, this last summer, it's become so popular. It's such a beautiful area. The local different rafting companies, tubing companies, actually come down and at the end of Dr. James Parker, you'll see it on the weekend. I've even put it up on the Red Bank Greens, a picture there. You'll see all the tubes there. They come in buses. They come all the way from Pennsylvania. They come into Red Bank. Afterwards, they come into town. They have dinner. They have lunch. They tube on the river.
So is this park gonna be for people from Pennsylvania?
I hope this park is
No, I'm
for
just saying,
everyone.
this park gonna be for that?
All parks,
So
to answer your
they already have
question,
a place.
one question at a time, this park, like any park, should be for everyone.
But they already
Pennsylvania,
have a place.
New Jersey, I think that's a great thing.
This is a very neighborhoody park, so you're gonna have a lot of traffic.
It's a
You're gonna have
waterfront
a lot
park.
of transients coming down there.
Transients, we do have a transient problem. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a derelict
So I
area.
lived here for 35 years.
That's wonderful.
You've been here how long, a year?
I've been coming to Red Bank since I was a
How
little,
long have you lived over there?
All right,
More than
Cindy,
20 years.
Cindy, that has nothing to do with it. Allow the man to express himself. Come on.
Mr. Gregory, please continue.
Yeah.
since I was 13, I've been going on the Navasink River.
Well, you're not the only one.
To answer that
Let
question,
him finish, please. We've listened to all of you. Please let this gentleman finish. Please.
I think I lost track.
Thank you. Please, please.
But yeah, we do have tubers coming in. Oh
You
yes.
said about
So-
transients.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So it is a kind of a derelict area. It's there are homeless people that are there sometimes. Not necessarily bad people. Everyone needs a place to go. But yes, we do have that. I have seen some kids back there smoking pot. They don't. As more and more people are moving into the neighborhood and using this area, I'm seeing less of that bad behavior. I think that self-policing thing is a true, that works. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think there's a lot of excitement here. I'm hearing some negative stuff, but the reality is a lot of the people that live in this area love the idea. Some people are moving to this area because of the idea of this. It's a very great, we're very excited about it. Thank you for all the work you've done.
I just got one thing to say.
Can we let's have
I lost 2 kids, and I know the feeling. Do you know the feeling to lose a child? Do you know the feeling to lose a child? I just spoke to a man on West Side the other day. Not mention his name where he lived at. His son was normal, okay? Right now his son is in a wheelchair. Just something, boom, happened. You don't know the feeling. I done seen my friends get drowned right down there in the West Coast. And Stanley, you know it. A couple of kids done got drowned down here. So this is what you want to happen sooner or later?
I am so sorry for your loss. I really am. But
you don't know the feeling.
I don't know the feeling, but I do know the fear. The fear of watching the kids out in the street, cars going left, right, everywhere. I have that fear. And I think a lot of the parents in this area,
Gentlemen,
a lot of parents have
let's relax a
that.
little bit.
We
played
want
in
a
the
safe
street.
place for the children.
We played in the street. Matter of fact, look. You talking about a pond. Look at this here. This is the pond down here, Count Basin. Look at that. Look at the weed around that. How can you see a child if he fall in the river? I just took this the other day. Look at that. How can you see a child if he want help fall in the river? How can you see a child with all this overgrowth? This is the pond down there. Look at it. Look at it.
Not There's
You don't know the
cars,
building.
there's kids playing in the street, and there's cars. Parks are a safe thing. It's a good thing. I'm pro the park.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, did you have your hand up there?
Yeah, Tom Lavetti, 45 Elm Place. Guys, I was at Freddie's first meeting, and I hope you are hearing some of the things that, because there were real serious concerns and stories that were brought up there. So I just want to say there was a lot to take of what he's been saying. I hope we're hearing it. About the concept, when I spoke last time, I advocated, I hope that we can get a structure where possibly classrooms could be, or children could get down there, and there could be an education component to this. You know, for all the schools in Red Bank, Catholic, charter, public, there really isn't a place where we can access the river and hold a class or do something along those lines. I see that there's a building there now. I'm not sure what the purpose of that is. But
It's not defined.
Okay.
And it's not defined for that
So
reason.
to give some feedback on the concept, from me, I'd like to see, you know, I saw what they did down in Brumpton with Monmouth University. They took it was a pumping station. They've got some ecological field research going on there now. I know this is a neighborhood park, and I know that we're trying to get some people into the park so they have some places to use, but this is Riverfront Park. And to have an area where children can come down and learn science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the STEM things that we're trying to teach our kids, I'd like to see a little bit more of that component worked into this year, into this concept. Again, knowing all the concerns that we have.
I think the idea is a multi-use building, that you have a room that could be either a classroom or a gathering space.
I just think a focus, a partnership, something with the university, or, you know, we missed out on Monmouth, maybe something you do with Brookdale to bring the schools a little bit.
And at this stage of where we are, we didn't need to define. We knew we wanted some sort of something.
Christine, based on the slides that you gave, you're looking for some feedback. I'm giving you some feedback
No, I
that you
appreciate
work with the
that.
concept. Second part, as a parent who had young kids who appreciated going down to a playground, even at Marine Park, I gotta say, looking at this concept, is there a need to have, and I love being near the water with my kids, but the playground is being put up right against the river. Why was the playground maybe not set back somewhere? I mean, I think that's valuable space to have to you know, my kids are gonna be on the slides and stuff like that, but I just don't, like, right up against the river, I'd like to see better use there. So that's some feedback on that. We don't need the the seesaws and stuff right there. It's not the best use. When you're in there with your kids, you're kind of like just watching them and not looking out the river so much. So it's another thing to consider. And again, with the parking and the ability of it to be a neighborhood and the connectivity over to the primary school and the Locust Avenue cut through, that all sounds great if you can make that happen. But again, if you do have an educational component and a kid wants to come over via a small bus from a school here in town, Catholic, charter, public, whatever, maybe consider a place where there would be a spot designated for a school bus or two.
Quite well made, thank you. I see, is it Frank? I think your hand might have been up first.
Frank Corrado, 53 Oakland Street. I am on the Environmental Commission, and while I don't speak for the Environmental Commission as a whole, I do appreciate you incorporating a lot of the feedback that we have provided you guys early on in this project. I think some of the concerns that have been brought up are real and serious from an environmental perspective. We can't overlook them. I also want to make sure that we're not going to make a decision based upon maybe anecdotal evidence. I think there is a lot of science, to your point. You know, the biologists and chemists. I'm not a biologist or a chemist. But I think if there's examples of other parks that have been remediated and they've done this in the past and it's been successful, we use that as a guide, you know, and I fully understand what you're saying. And in Red Bank, if there's examples where at the one park that Freddie brought up where there's trash coming up from the ground, well, we should identify that. And that's not to say that that's going to happen here, but if it's a risk of actually happening, what you know, can we do to make the community feel a little bit more comfortable that that will not happen here, right? I think the overall plan is beautiful. I'd say, similar to what Brian said, I think we have a lot of these types of little park areas already. If we could having some kind of skate park. So just my initial feedback when you said that you're going to have furniture that could be skated on, I think that could create confusion. You could create people's, you know, kids want to skate, people are sitting on furniture, and it creates some conflict there. Having a designated skate park, I think, would only make this an even more vibrant area. And personally, my own personal take is that this this is going to be a gem for Red Bank. I think Red Bank's moving in such a good direction, and I think this is just another piece from my perspective that's going to, go a long way to putting Red Bank putting us on the map as being one of the best places in New Jersey to live. Thank you.
And just to take a kind of a quick response to that, I hope folks don't think that the borough and the employees and our elected people are kind of dismissing the safety concerns of it. I mean, I'm going to be sitting on that park every day. I'm invested in it as anyone. But remember that USD, or the DEP, Green Acres, all these folks that are going to contribute to this, they don't want to see a place where there's danger or there's environmental substandards there. So they're going to have a vested interest in this being safe and clean as well. And the requirements for these types of funds get more stringent every year. So some of the things you saw in the 70s got better in the 80s and so forth. And they're constantly improving the sort of the standard of care for it, if you will. So I see some hands up. So were you next?
Roy Myers, 62 Throckmorton Avenue, and as Frank alluded to, he may not be a scientist, but I am. Going back to the contamination, you've used the broad word contamination. I think to a large extent, as a way to identify exactly what's there, exactly what's going to happen to it, list out. I know you've had conversations with the DEP. I spent over 30 years with the DEP. I know how it works. What contaminants are there? What levels are there? What is going to be done to control them? Will they stay in place? Will they move with groundwater? By not identifying that kind of information, you allow yourself to be open to criticism for not sharing everything. Here's how we're going to work. It's out there. What kind of monitoring is going to be needed to make sure the material is not moving out the groundwater into the river or into surface water? So those kinds of points, identifying the compounds, identifying the levels, go a long way toward providing a degree of comfort and knowledge about exactly what's happening at the site. The more, in my experience of doing what I've done for years, the more forthcoming you are with that kind of information, the better off the conversations end up being. Because here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to monitor. Here's what it's going to cost us. And there is a cost. It is a contaminated site. But let's not just use the word contaminated and let it be the boogeyman. Identify them, we can control the chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to
Can we get some people
I just
who
want to ask
haven't
one quick
spoken?
question. The next meeting, will somebody, at all meetings, I never really seen nobody from the DEP.
I'm sorry, I can't.
I'm just saying, nobody never really be here from the DEP, all the people you're talking about. Why they don't never come to these meetings where people can ask a series of questions? And I just want to know that almost
They will in the process. This park's not getting built tomorrow. And
but I'm just
throughout
saying,
the process, they'll
they
be
should.
excited.
If you're going to do something,
If
why?
we can have a daytime meeting, they'll be here tomorrow.
But I mean-
They're
But I
unfortunately
mean,
state officials.
shouldn't they
generally
come
don't
here
to
sometime
meetings.
if you want to ask these questions? I just said for myself, why they don't never come, and I never be able to see them.
They'll be here in 2 weeks, actually.
it's just
for a
like
walk
saying-
on the site.
But you are a builder or a developer?
No,
What are you?
I'm an engineer.
Engineer, okay. But I'm just saying, it would be nice for them to come, because I always hear DEP.
They'll be here on December 11th.
I'm
They're
just saying,
planning, they're scheduling a meeting, they want to walk the site with us again. They've walked
but I'm
the
just
site with
saying,
us before.
besides walking the site, they should be here all the time to ask the serious questions.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
it would be nice and fair.
it would be nice in theory, but,
Yeah, but I'm
you
just saying,
know,
it's not, you know what, I'm just saying, it's not a joke, it's not a game, but the series of, like this lady said, when something happens, it's gonna happen, and all around I don't heard stories that happen. Nobody really lived there, down that area, but when you live there, you can see it all. I lived there.
They'll
but I'm
be
saying-
here. Listen, the DEP, if anyone has specific questions of them, feel free to write them down, send them to me. I will forward them on and have responses from the DEP.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm saying this, I'm gonna go, but I'm saying that it would be good if they was here to answer these questions, but I'll let you know.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Barons here with my son Daniel Barons. We live on Oakland Street. We are your skate park advocates from the meeting earlier at the strip. We're so glad you heard us, and I also wanted to suggest that maybe there be a designated zone and that having a shared space for skateboarding might be confusing or scary to people. And we've done a lot of volunteering for Forester Roads. I've done a lot of skate park related travel. I see the difference this can make to kids who age at playgrounds, and I really really want this in our town, and it really is successful. Well, thank you.
Ben Boris, 16 Locust Avenue. I think it's a great idea. I'm just so sorry it's taking so long. I'm glad you're having this process, and while and I think even the negative comments serve a positive purpose here in the sense that, I mean, changes can be scary, even well-intended change. And you know, maybe it's nice living in a nice quiet spot where you don't have much traffic, or whether this is a nice park, it probably will bring a little more activity on some levels. I like the synergy of connecting. Will police be necessary? Of course, but we need police there now. There's a lot of hazards there. It's a mess. You know, it's a former landfill. It's an active health concern to all of us now. As long as these things are done and they are meaningful and they help contain or control the pollutants and our access to them and to the wildlife access, I think it's a no-brainer. Of course, we want to do something and have it just sit there and continue to leach everywhere. I really like the focus on the neighborhood part of this. This is really here to serve the neighborhood. I don't like the word destination. I even have some concerns about the building, to be honest with you. I'm not sure I'm bought into having some sort of building there. Maybe. And really, the local park, a place for people to play, kids to play, adults to walk, bike riding, and you know, certainly we need a soccer field. Too much reliance on the Count Basie now. Well, I think this is an amazing. I think we have a little work to do, right? I don't think this is the final plan, and I'm not sure.
It's a concept.
I think trying to get feedback, I think, from all of us. So I think you should speak up, sir.
The question was, why do you think?
So I think having a park, I think a park for the neighborhood's a good idea. It is curious that there is such powerful resistance, and even, you know, these health issues, which are legitimate. I mean, we all are at risk of cancer, and it is an alarming situation now, and we need to take action. Not taking action is also a decision. Leaving the mess there is a decision. So whether we proceed with the park or not, we are making a decision. I think that by far the greater good of the town is to have some sort of park there and make use of this large stretch of land in a very, I mean, I don't know how long I've served on the Board of Education, and I've heard complaints about not enough recreation area in town. I think since '96 when I lived there, I guess I'm not a lifer, but I know I had problems as a parent, you know, with going to the Count Basie is not a very convenient place for us when we were raising our son and daughter here in town. We often go to the East Side Park, and that is not convenient, you know, getting in the car. And Count Basie was a little, when we lived at Locust Avenue, Count Basie is kind of a hike. We wound up driving there. There's not enough parking there. Had this been there, it certainly would have improved our quality of life. If it's done right and it keeps local, and I do share some of the fears about change, so this really has to be done right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Sorry.
Mike Cosberg, I live on Wall Street. I've been a resident in town for 22 years, and I grew up in Shrewsbury and worked in town before that. Park here is a great idea. I would just say I think maybe more bicycle parking blocks. I ride everywhere in town in the nice weather. I go to the park. I don't want to drive there. I want to ride a bike. It would also maybe make it more of a local park if more people rode instead of parking spots. My other thing is, really, do you need a soccer field there? Wouldn't passive recreation of view be better, an open lawn? I mean, you have to maintain a soccer field to a higher degree than a great lawn. And you're going to attract, even if, again, it's not a regulation field, so what's the point? Are you going to attract 22 people to come play games at night when everyone wants to go and sit in that spot? I just think that maybe you should rethink that. And finally, I'd like, if you do a wooded area, which I think is great, I'd like to suggest that you use native riparian species all down there. And really, even if you can't get nursery caliber trees completely, you fill it in with stuff that belongs down there and really give something back. I think the interaction between the river and the wildlife and people enjoying the park in more of a passive setting would be the best way to really utilize this park. That's just my 2 cents worth, but I'm all for a park. This looks like a nice, very nice starting point. I love the kayak launch. I love the walkway, especially if you're not going to bulkhead it. It gives the kind of filtration of the natural riverbank. I think it's a good step forward.
what we've done here.
Thank you.
And just to kind of address the soccer field, because there's been a lot of dialogue about it, and we probably knocked it around back and forth too. As you said before, it is smaller and shorter, so I don't visualize, you know, like you said, 11 on 11 full people.
Like practice side, and have a few open for.
Right, so whether that looks like Central Park with a big rolling lawn, or it's flat, or it's square, or there's chalk down, it's really still to be determined. I'm not trying to dodge the issue of, is there going to be a soccer field there? It's, the point's well made though, and we've gone back and forth, and having heard a lot of opinions about the park, there's a big bucket of people that say pro field, and a big bucket of people that say don't do it, and we're trying, so.
Charlie, real quick on
Sir.
the soccer field, are you guys envisioning grass or a turf of some kind?
This is grass, it's all
We're
grass.
thinking this is as natural as possible, so we haven't heard much dialogue about turf to this point. Sir?
I just want to ask one quick question. You said the next meeting will be December 11th,
That's when,
The DEP is coming to walk the site.
but I mean, it won't be right here.
No.
Oh.
They're walking the site.
Jimmy, if you have questions, give
One
it to
comment on
Christine.
that.
If you have a question
I'm
for the
okay. I'll just do
DEP,
it.
you can give me your questions, I can
No.
pass it along and get a response for you.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
We're coming before the skate parks. We've looked at skate parks for the past 20 years. There are some joint insurance fund rules with regard to skate parks about signage, postings, and fencing around it. So I don't know if the whole park can be designed to accommodate skate parks. There's some rules and concerns with regard to our coverage there. There are some nice parks. I know Niagara Highlands has a very nice park. Just take my son down to Long Branch before he broke his ankle. And, so anyway, but there are some, I think there's some, if what's going to be required to make it a good skate park, whether we do it here or do it somewhere else, may conflict with the available space and other priorities that we have. That's all I just want to point.
I can't hear. Can you speak louder,
Kate
please?
Asbury, I'm passionate skate park advocate. Atlantic Highlands is actually not a good park, the ramps are sinking into the ground.
I know that too.
So,
I know that too.
use me as a resource.
Oh, we've had designers come in and meet with Parks and Rec.
She's an
Committee.
advocate
We've had
of
developers.
skate parks, as you said.
Park.
She's an advocate.
all right, I see
Yeah.
a couple more. Go Tom real quick, and then the young lady in the my left side. Your right.
Charlie, I know we talked about funding and stuff like that. Does anyone have an idea of what types of park elements help attract funding? Is anyone really familiar with raising money? We could talk about how we go about doing that.
So,
Have they given you any input on like what features to help with their job of raising money?
So, I'll tell you, this park has a lot of features that make it beneficial for applying for funding, but to name a few, one, it's development of a new park in a new area for a community that is underserved by parks, first and foremost.
New acquisition as opposed to improvements
Right.
is always a big.
Secondly, it's development of brownfields, and also the waterfront access portion of it. So there's, not only is there ability for park development funding, but you can get trail funding because you will have a trail network kind of connecting in. So there's lots of different funding sources that we can apply to. Right, and you know, the way, I'm gonna be honest, this is probably not going to be built all in one phase. It will probably be phased, this way you can maximize funding. You can apply to Monmouth County open space every year, but they're only gonna give you so much in a year. So if you break it into phases, you can make multiple applications and really maximize the amount of money you'll get for this project.
Ma'am, I apologize. We didn't catch your name before for the record.
Susan Bergman, the question is from one of my neighbors who couldn't be here, he's away on business. He was concerned about light pollution. How bright is this going to be, affecting us? And also I'm concerned about how much noise there's going to be.
I think typically you guys do dawn to dusk on the park system. I don't think that's been figured out yet, but typical is dawn to dusk, right?
Yeah. Everett Parks, we tried to do dawn to dusk, Eastside Parks dawn to dusk. The exception was Mount Basie because it's had high school games in May.
So there's not gonna be
Prior to
lighting there?
doing that, I had to go door to door to all the residents, get their approval for that. But we don't light the other fields. The only other place that's public, we do have lights in Riverside Gardens. And we do have a closing time, I think it's the end, if I'm not mistaken. Green Park's, I believe.
So
And they're like,
you're saying, because what I'm hearing is typically, what is this park going to become? Is this going to be?
all the discussions I've been a part of were dawn to dusk. Maybe some solar for path lighting, just for, in case it gets dark.
So they can go find their way to shoot up.
Well, so people can find their way home if they're walking over from school
Prostitutes
or
can
walking
work
from,
there too, yeah, they.
walking from their friend's house.
Mr. Kelsey?
Kelsey Richardson, formerly of 53 West Sunset. So I was a small child when that incinerator slash dump was
You
actually.
were never a small child.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
The beauty of this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's a concept. It isn't built yet. Red Bank is a wonderful town and it keeps growing in popularity. Thus, more homes are being built on the west side, which tells us something. We're headed in the right direction because people want to be here. And there's a reason for it, because our community is truly unique. This could make us unique. However, if we're going to do it collectively, we have to agree on it and we have to get it done right, because the stamp of approval for the citizens of Red Bank has to serve everybody. What Mr. Boynton was saying about the environmental aspect of it, we got to know what's under that ground if you can ask kids to play. There's water down there. That river is not to be toyed with. That river has taken lives before.
That's sand.
So that's another aspect we have to deal with. So these are real concerns. However, it's very easy to come up with problems. The key is solutions. And something that will work for everybody and everyone in the community to keep us far ahead of other communities in the Jersey Shore. When you talk about Red Bank, everybody knows where it is, right? Everybody loves Red Bank, the shop, the community, everything it offers. This could make us truly unique, but we have to make sure we do it the right way. Okay? It's a great concept, and the beauty of a concept is concepts change. It's not written in stone. So what I'm saying to the people who look at it as a problem, come up with a solution. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Let's try and let this make it work for everybody, so that instead of it being an eyesore or a problem or an issue, everybody has input to make it what it could be, something wonderful that could work for everybody. Now, I'm not saying there's a guarantee it's going to work for everybody, because there's no guarantees in life. But when you have a concern, this is the forum to state it. And these forums like this help us build something truly unique that works for everybody. That's what this is all about, giving you a place to voice your concern. For Mr. Boynton, who's concerned about what's in the ground, he can tell you his concern is very real. And the river. That's all I'm saying. It's just, let's try and work collectively to make it something unique, but make sure that when we do it, we get it right the first time.
Question. Are you gonna have maybe like security phones? Like when I was in college, we had like security phones around. I don't know if there's electricity there. Just if there is a problem with something going on, that someone can reach real fast, because the cops aren't gonna be able. Are we gonna have access to security phones? Maybe like a hotline. If somebody sees something, they can call up. I want a dog park, but if there's room. But
Well, there are certain.
little room on the right
stipulations.
bottom right hand
Yeah,
side,
but
maybe.
It's near the water too. We don't want it to
Cool.
be.
I know we're getting close to some of our bedtimes. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, I got one more question.
Sir?
You want to go?
No, Kevin. Freddie, you have the floor.
You gotta realize where that park is gonna be is a dump. And if you go up Staten Island, 440, Look on both sides of the road, when you walking up here. This is landfill. Landfill. On both sides. All dirt in there. You don't see no park up there.
That's where they're building a park.
Where the landfill is.
That's where they're building Fresh Kills.
Let me finish. 440. Go on in. Landfill here, you take the garbage over there, you put it on the bar. Not anymore. Not anymore.
That's where Fresh Kills is going.
I'm saying, let me finish. Can I finish? I'm not here to attack you. Let me finish. But I'm saying a fact.
I grew up in Staten Island, and that was the world's largest landfill, as the gentleman said.
There's no park up there on that landfill.
There is some.
There is. As they have in Brooklyn.
Look, you know, when I walked out of here, okay, keep it real, okay? Like I said, I had a meeting. Y'all wasn't at my meeting that I had. It was open to the public, okay? Y'all wasn't at the meeting, okay? There's a lot of other people concerned about this park, where it's gonna be at the dump, okay? Now, what we're gonna do, okay, we're gonna have a fundraiser. We're gonna get 2 special lawyers. We're gonna start with Long Branch stuff, lawsuit, okay? Because we know what's gonna happen down there. And like I said before, I seen my baby laying in the hospital with needles in them. You sit here and you sit here, because I get very upset. I apologize for this. But y'all sit here. I seen my child laying there in the bed, couldn't talk. Y'all don't know the feeling of a baby sitting there with needles in them. And you're talking about a park down here in a dump area where I played, where the Army building used to be on Chestnut Street, bought all their old shells and dumped down here. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So all of y'all need to be shaming yourself in here. I lost 2 kids. I know the feeling. I lost a daughter and a son, 8 months old. He couldn't talk, couldn't see no more. And you want to put a park down here? You're crazy. Ridiculous.
So we'll transition a little bit here. Passing the thought. Mr. Boris?
Fred left, obviously, I'm really sorry for what happened here. And that's exactly what I think, why I think we need to move forward with this. This is a dump. It's a health issue. It's a safety hazard. If we don't cap it, we're going to have more problems. So moving forward with this is the right way to go. And on top of that, of course, having a place where we can all enjoy nature, children, adults, people who like to bike, people who like to skate, skateboard, people who like to watch the sunset. This is, to me, a win-win situation for everybody. So, honestly, I don't understand why people are opposing it. I think it's a fear, and a fear of what happened in the past. This is the way to the future.
Any last comments before we kind of wrap us up? Folks, there's a lot of passion on both sides of this, and I think everyone comes from a fair point, and we're trying to be as transparent as possible. Our friends from T&M have been working on this project since 2007, so I appreciate them preparing for this today. Christine is on the injured list and should be home. We're in a hospital, and she gutted out today, so I want to thank her for that as well, and Tom for his vision. Everything you see is basically from feedback from other discussions we've had prior. It's from the meeting we had at Pilgrim. It's from some feedback from the Rec Committee, from the Environmental Committee, other things we've heard. So please keep the dialogue going, and we're hoping for further conversation. Mrs. Burnham, did you have a comment?
I just wondered, what was the Sunset Plaza? What is that?
This up here?
Oh,
So
it's way up there.
should be.
Oh, yeah, it's way down there. So what is that area?
So basically, what we did was when we did our initial site analysis, one of the highest points of the site is right in that area, and we actually mapped out all the angles of the sunset throughout the year.
Sunset.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a giant sundial, but it'll be kind of the focal point. Ms. Rose.
Yeah.
Like you know anything about
I
recreation in this
wasn't gonna say
town.
anything, but I'm listening to Susan, and I live on the west side too, and I hear her concerns. But Eastside Park wasn't always Eastside Park. Eastside Park used to be this rundown place that us young kids used to go, and we used to do whatever we did in there. It was a bunch of trees. It was nasty, and there was a laundromat across the street. It was Donald's Laundromat. They owned Providence. And when they decided, and we fought, the kids, the teenagers in Ripon actually got the parents on board to develop Eastside Park because of all the concerns that you had. Once that park was developed and it was cleaned out, we weren't able to go in there and do what we used to do because
So where did
now,
you go?
Marine Park, Kathy. But no, really, and I get that concern. My parents had that same concern because we lived catty corner from Eastside Park. They had the concern about the parking, they had concern about the kids hanging out, they had that concern about the kids, and this was in the 70s, so we're talking about a lot of pot smoking and not a lot of underage drinking. Once that park was cleaned up, we didn't see that at Eastside Park anymore. There was heroin, there's always been heroin in this world. I mean, we weren't a part of that, but the point of it is once that park gets cleaned up, they're going in there because it's nasty down there. There's trees that cover them. Like they can go in there and nobody will see them. Nobody goes in there and watches it. Once we have this beautiful park down there, and I'm not talking about a contamination issue. I'm just talking about a nice place, and it's people are not going to go down there and do what the things you think they're doing. They said
West Side Avenue, they're gonna go down, you're gonna make it.
no, they didn't. They said they're going to have a walking. They said they may have walking
It was a
openings.
set of stairs. It was a set of, right.
Okay, everybody's not going to be able to drive down
They
there.
are gonna park there, and I can't even get out of my driveway when people have parties because of, it's a dead end, not a cul-de-sac. It's a real concern.
We can talk about that offline.
Yeah, but I thought the opening,
So I can understand that better.
was on
You know, 'cause
Sunset.
you have the opening on Sunset, I don't understand why there needs to be another one in my front yard.
That was just comments from our initial kickoff meeting, was people had wanted some pedestrian accesses from Chapin and from West Side. That's why it was incorporated.
One more quick question. So if we're gonna go forward with this park, is Bellhaven dead?
No.
No, not at all.
Oh, you're still gonna continue with Bellhaven?
Yes.
We're gonna put a Ferris wheel down
I think you would, Kathy.
there. I would.
All right, let's end on a positive note. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Happy to speak further.
Landscape architect.
I'm working at McDonald's in 2 weeks.